Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Been a little while since we did an episode. Felt like there wasn't really much worth talking about since the Bethesda debacle. But then Supergirl aired last night. Supergirl is going to be I think it's the first leg of the crossover. I could be wrong. I think they reshuffled the week and they moved them to different days. So I'm not entirely sure what the first leg of the crossover is, but I think it's Supergirl next Sunday night. In any case, last night was the mid-season finale, and I can't really say about how I feel about Manchester Black or how I feel about Agent Liberty or anything like that, really, that went on in the finale, because I'm not exactly been keeping up with the show. And I don't want to weigh in on something and, be wrong about my opinion. Because I can't say one way or the other. I didn't even watch the full episode. I just watched the clip online from the end of the episode, which is what we're here to talk about. Yesterday when I woke up, if someone said to me, "You will never guess what character they're killing off on Supergirl," they would have been correct. Because in the tail end of Supergirl, they show a bunch of dead heroes on an Earth 90. And there are a lot of Earths in the CW. We knew previously there were 53, was the previous count when, Wells in the previous crossover said there are 52 Earths, 53. Earth X being 53rd, they just don't go there. They designated a dead planet, basically. But then again, there have been other times where it's like, Kara talked about how there being infinite different worlds out there, and the first crossover World's Finest, with Barry, when the Flash showed up on Supergirl that one time. There have always been indications that there have been more than 52 Earths. But they always counted it back at 52, and that was always the number they went with. So this is the first time we had an actual designated Earth outside of the number 52. Outside of it, we have Earth 38, the Earth that Supergirl is on. You have Earth, Earth 1, which is Flash, Arrow, all of those. Earth 2, which is basically Bizarro to them, where most of the characters that are on Earth 2 are bad guys. Well, I mean, most being Ronnie Raymond and Vibe and Killer Frost being from that Earth. Then Earth 3 is the Earth of Jay Garrick as the Flash, and Jay Garrick is the Flash there. You have a Trickster similar to Earth 1. And also played by Mark Hamill. So that's Earth 3. There are a bunch of other Earths that the various other Wells are from. And then there's Sherlock Wells. There's Earth 19 where Gypsy's from. And HR from Season 3 of The Flash. But then we ended up with Earth 90. And Earth 90 seems like a war zone when we're panning across this with a slow pan across a bunch of dead bodies from above. We see heroes from all over. We see both the Hawks, Hawkman and Hawkgirl, not the same ones from Legends of Tomorrow, but they're Earth 90 versions, both dead. The Ray, not the Earth X Ray, or the Earth 1 somehow got to Earth X Ray. Not him, but again, the Ray, dead. We see his helmet. We see, who else? Stargirl, not Earth 1 Stargirl, different Stargirl, also dead. And as we go through, we see numerous of the characters all dead. And like the Huntress, we see dead. We see Captain Cold and Citizen Cold, both dead. And the Captain Cold of this show is the Captain Cold that faced off against John Wesley Shipp's Flash in the 90s TV show. And then we get to the biggest reveal, and when I started this off saying a character died on Supergirl last night, and if you told me that they died in the beginning of the day, I would not have believed you. The Green Arrow from Smallville is also killed off, as we see this pan. And then we get to the only surviving member of, I don't know if it's a Justice League or a Justice Society, because, I mean, Stargirl being there makes me think more of Justice Society, but she could be an honorary League member on this Earth. And she's been a League member in the comics before. So there is, the deceased Justice League, except for the Flash. And of course the Flash always lives, because the Flash is one of the most overpowered members of the Justice League. Because as I said before, the Justice League, at its core, is a fundamental race to see who can be the most overpowered character in the show, in their thing. Because you get the Flash, who can run and can conceive of events before they happen, and he's, the fastest man alive. He can outrun Superman, he can do all that. He had feats of strength, evacuating cities while a nuke's going off without anyone dying. The famous attosecond comment, where he can conceive events at the speed of an attosecond, which human brains can't even conceive how fast that is, let alone think at that speed. Then you got the Green Lantern, who can create literally anything he needs out of light constructs. Superman, who has feats of strength that go above and beyond anything any other member of the League. Wonder Woman, who is one of the best fighters in the League. Then you got Batman, who, with enough prep time, could probably face God down and halt it to a standstill. I feel like if they did another amalgam, you can do Batman versus full Infinity Gauntlet Thanos, and Batman would still fight him to a standstill. You have Martian Manhunter, who's basically Superman, but he can also turn invisible and make his things pass right through him. Very similar to the Vision from Marvel. I think Martian Manhunter was first, though. So really, you got all these characters who are basically a race to see who's the most overpowered, but the Flash is one of the most overpowered characters on the League. Just because of the way his speed manifests and his relationship to the Speed Force works. Now, he's the only one not dead. Now, the Flash that we see here is, in fact, Barry Allen. Not the Barry Allen of Earth 1, played by Grant Gustin. It is John Wesley Shipp. Full costume from the 90s TV show. Full on as Barry Allen again. And he faces off against a man who anyone who's read Crisis on Infinite Earths knows is the fucking Monitor. And there we have our first lead-in to... it's our first lead-in to Elseworlds, where we have all these characters facing off against the Monitor. And if I think that we should be in awe of the fact that this TV show has been filmed and treated with the same level of secrecy around it that Infinity War was. And that Age of Ultron, to a lesser extent, was. Like, we have no idea. It airs in less than a week. And we have no idea what's happening in this fucking crossover. And it's a TV show. And really what I wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about. And when I started this out, I didn't know what I was going to do. Really, I just wanted to get an episode out, because I hadn't done one in a while. And I have time to kill before a raid starts in Pokemon Go, a little distance away from me. So I figured I'm in my car, might as well pump out an episode so I have an excuse to sit in the parking lot, maybe look at them on the phone, and I can talk about this. So, this is what I wanted to talk about. DC has an image problem, which appears, based on early reviews of Aquaman, to be rectifying itself, and when Shazam comes out, it's going to continue that trend, if it continues as is. And, I don't know, I think it's going to continue. 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 I think it's And DC seems to be more focused on doing, for lack of a better word, Elseworlds movies, where they're loosely connected. It's not like Marvel, where everything's heavily connected and everything builds, and they've built up this, They've built this series of movies leading into Infinity War, and Infinity War Part 2, which may get a title on Wednesday, when the trailer drops, allegedly. But DC seems to be taking a more director-driven approach, which could serve them well. Because the director-driven approach is what they took for The Dark Knight, and that was one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. If you look at director-driven comic book movies, Wonder Woman, Iron Man, all of these things are very, heavily what the director's vision is. And then on the other side, though, you can make the case that you end up with Batman v Superman. You end up with other things like that, where the director is given a more, hands-on control. You get the Avengers, which you can, it's just one of those things that was good the first time, but you can't really rewatch it because it's just painful to watch the first Avengers movie. And I think that you can make the case in both directions for whether or not director-driven is a good approach for a comic book movie. But that said, we start out with this more director-driven approach. Here's what they should do. Okay? I've said it on Twitter before. I don't think this will reach any more people than I have on Twitter, but I'm trying to signal boost this as an idea that they should take into consideration. Okay? We'll start out with the easy part of this, which is give Greg Berlanti a fucking movie. Because he was Season 1 of The Flash was the movie that he was going to have when Ryan Gosling was in talks to play The Flash, back before Man of Steel, after Green Lantern. But after Green Lantern bombed, that movie got backburnered. They took the plot of The Flash and put it into Season 1 of the TV show The Flash. And if you watch Seasons 1, 2, and 3 of The Flash, you can kind of see an arc happening. You can see an arc for Barry's character over the course of what would be a trilogy of movies, where Season 1, you have Barry dealing with the Reverse Flash, who is which is his past. He's coming to terms with his past and dealing with the death of his parents in a meaningful way, similar to how Harry Potter is forced to in Prisoner of Azkaban. So it's a similar kind of character arc for him in that movie, or in that season. Season 2, he's now dealing with the direct result of his actions through the season, as we introduce Earth 2 being a result of how he handles the Reverse Flash, and now he's dealing with the repercussions of being a hero, and coming and dealing with that, and coming into his own as a hero. Then in the third one, when he faces off against Savitar, Savitar is a villain, that's him. He's facing off against himself, and the version of himself that he creates as a result of going a step too far as a hero. So there you have the arc there that they were going to use for that trilogy. But that got backburnered and eventually canned entirely after Mark Guggenheim epically fucked DC's first attempt at creating what Marvel has now. Now we can go and we can talk about what they should do next. If you've ever watched a Dragon Ball Z movie, you know that Dragon Ball Z has a very weird relationship with what is and is not canon with their movies. Now, the new movie, Broly, Dragon Ball Super Broly, is going to be the next arc, so that is canon. But Broly, prior to this year, with this movie, and Super when they were doing Universal Tournament, was never canon. The legendary Super Saiyan, Broly Returns, Fusion Reborn, BoJack Unbound, Super Android 13. These were all movies that Dragon Ball Z made, and they were all non-canon, but they all had their place where you can kind of fit them into where it would be, and there was no reason to discount them as not canon. It's kind of like a one-way street, kind of like how the books for Star Wars were canon to the movies, but the movies weren't liable to reference the books at any point. It's the same thing, where it was canon to the TV show, but the TV show wasn't really ever forced to reference it, and there were places you could fit it in, but it didn't quite fit in neatly. It was like an awkwardly shaped puzzle piece to fit in. So that's what they should do with these CW shows, and what they're doing on DC Universe is now you have all of these pockets that you can fill in with stuff. You can do the first one that I thought they should do back when I first had this idea was Flash vs. the Rogues, and it would be Grant's Flash facing off against the Rogues that are all appeared: Weather Wizard, Heatwave, Captain Cold, the Top, Mirror Master. You have all these characters who you are now have in the sandbox, and you can take them all and you can put them to work in a live action movie with a feature film budget. Or you don't even have to go with a full feature film budget. You can do it on a 30 million or a 40 million. It can be a slightly abbreviated, slightly expanded version of an episode. Take a 2.5 episode budget, make it into a movie, and there you go. You got a 2-hour long feature. Then I saw this last night, and I had the perfect idea of how you start this idea. So if you work for Warner Brothers and you want to take notes on what they should do it like this. First, I want to say nothing against the guy who plays Jax, but I'm not familiar. I haven't watched Legends of Tomorrow as recently as I've watched season 1 of The Flash again, so I'm going with this. You start out with a short film, and you attach it to the Birds of Prey movie, which has a very long title that I can't remember for absolutely no reason. You attach it to the front of it the same way Bow and every Pixar movie has a short film attached to it. You attach this short film to it. What do you attach? The Fury of Firestorm, which is a prelude to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And what you do is you do that scene at the end of the episode, The Fury of Firestorm, where Ronnie and Stein fly off to Pittsburgh. That sets you right into the motion of this movie, where they fly off and go to Pittsburgh, and they encounter Harbinger, and they encounter Psycho Pirate. And you basically just do a short film adaptation of The Fury of Firestorm, the comic. And then comes the hard part of having to incorporate that into where they would fit this into a movie. You do a Crisis on Infinite Earths movie with all of these characters that you have. You bring in Supergirl. You bring in the cast of The Flash. You bring in the cast of Arrow. You bring in the cast of Legends of Tomorrow. You bring in Black Lightning. You bring in everything you can into this, and you go all out. Now, on top of it being a relatively low-budget way to generate attention for your TV shows, the short film alone will boost ratings for the TV show when they see this is what we're doing over there on network TV. So I would... that's how I would do it. I would have it where you can start out with that, and then you go launch right into Crisis on Infinite Earths. And you do a 2-part movie, and you just go all out. You take a year off, maybe, from doing the TV show, and you go all out doing a full fucking movie for these things, 2 movies. And then with that, you've started something. And I think that this is where DC can get their strength that Marvel doesn't. Marvel has a weird relationship between their TV and their movie departments. With that, you could incorporate the two here. You could show them we're not afraid to make these things big, and you could also get a foothold where Marvel failed. Marvel was the first company to shoot a TV show on IMAX with Inhumans. Shoot this on IMAX and make it good, and you will have beaten them at something that the head of Marvel Comics and Marvel Entertainment had their hands in. And what's that for a bragging right? You're still competition. And there you go. That's how you get a foot in on something that Marvel does not have. Especially with Daredevil getting canceled alongside Luke Cage and Iron Fist. And then when Jessica Jones gets canceled at season 3, And when Punisher doesn't get picked up for season 3, then that's how you beat them. You've now beaten them on the TV front. While they're bringing their movies to the small screen, you bring your TV shows to the big screen, and that's how you compete. And that's where we'll end off for today. I've been Adam. You can follow me on Twitter at AdamTaylor792, and we will wrap up there for today. And we will be back next week with another topic of conversation, probably after Elseworlds, so we can unpack whatever the fuck we just watched for 3 hours.